The WordPress community looks like it's on the path of imploding. One of the world's leading website development platforms, powering about as much as 45% of websites online, is having a lot of drama lately. And it goes all the way to the top. Matt Mullenweg has been making some questionable moves recently, and it's got a lot of people worried. You would think that the founder of WordPress would probably have his finger on the pulse of the community of WordPress, but it's not an automatic win in this case for the CEO of Automattic. It's gotten pretty odd at this point, because we're even seeing employees of the parent company Automattic choosing to resign en masse. So let's talk about what's going on. Hi, I'm Michael, and I first started developing websites when Java applets were still a thing. I've created thousands of sites over the years, and a lot of those have been powered by WordPress, including the Tuxeter website for this channel. Okay, so where did we start with this mess? I guess we should get some context for those who are not familiar. So WordPress is an open source CMS, or content management system, that powers a lot of the web. It's basically like a framework or a platform for building a website. There are also some companies and organizations around WordPress, like the WordPress Foundation, which is the nonprofit organization that manages the development of WordPress project and runs WordPress.org. Then there's the company Automattic, which owns WordPress.com, the Jetpack security tool, Askimet anti-spam, and WooCommerce, which are all important components in the WordPress ecosystem. There are a lot of other things it owns too, but you could check out the link in the show notes for the whole list. The structure of how WordPress and everything works is kind of confusing. The biggest confusion part is WordPress.org versus WordPress.com, because WordPress.org is where you download the open source CMS and where the community plugins are stored. So if you wanted to download the software and put it up on your own hosting service where you have your own provider that's separate from any kind of specific WordPress hosting, then you would download it there and upload it and do everything yourself. Now, there are also hosted services like WordPress.com, which is a service provided by the Automattic company for those who want to have the benefit of using WordPress but don't want to deal with hosting it themselves. Because if you are not familiar with how this all works, it's pretty complicated. And even if you are familiar with it, there is still a lot to do. So some people choose to have it hosted for them as well. There are also third-party companies, not just WordPress.com. There's other ones that offer WordPress hosting, and the one involved in this drama is WP Engine. As it turns out, WP Engine seems to host more WordPress websites than Automattic, the makers of WordPress. So that's interesting. And I'm sure the WordPress team isn't happy about that. But why all the drama recently? It all started at the WordCamp US WordPress conference, where Matt Mullenweg essentially claimed that WP Engine is extracting from open source and that people should vote with their wallets against them. This was at an event that WP Engine was also sponsoring. The next day, WordPress.org posted a blog post titled, "WP Engine is not WordPress." This post called out WP Engine for using WP in its name, which we'll get to later. And they say that it's confusing people about its official association or not with WordPress. They also say that WP Engine only contributes 40 hours a week back to the WordPress project compared to the 3,915 hours a week that is contributed by Automattic. And they also say that WP Engine turns off WordPress's revision system to save on storage costs, which could be a problem for users. This post also calls WP Engine a cancer to WordPress and states that unchecked cancer will spread. After this happened, naturally, WP Engine was not happy with what was being said, so they sent Automattic a cease and desist letter asking them to withdraw their comments. They also claimed that Mullenweg tried to blackmail them into paying a % of its revenue to use the WordPress trademark. Automattic sent a cease and desist letter back saying it violated the trademark and banned WP Engine from accessing the WordPress.org service. This has now started a legal battle between the two. So who's in the right here, you might be wondering? Well, that's where it gets even more messy, because you could say that both of them are in the right and both of them are not. Automattic, WordPress Foundation, WordPress.org, and WordPress.com were all started by the same person, Matt Mullenweg. As I mentioned earlier, Automatic contributes close to 4,000 hours per week to the project, which you would expect being the founders of the project, but they also have started many other projects that became core parts of the WordPress ecosystem. So it's fair to say that WordPress and WP Engine, for that matter, would not be where it is today without all of the work from Automatic. And I mean, WordPress wouldn't even exist without that. Then there is WP Engine that has also built its entire business on WordPress, but contributes back nearly less than 100th of what Automatic does. They do contribute some, but not nearly as much if you're measuring by lines of code. Now, Mullenweg claims that WP Engine has also never donated anything to WordPress Foundation financially, and there's a problem there, in my opinion. But some people are calling this freeloading off an open source project, and some others are saying that WordPress is mad because WP Engine is doing it better than them. Others who support WordPress in this situation are doing it because they want to maintain a standard for companies contributing back to the software that they built their businesses on. And as an advocate for open source, I'm a very big proponent of giving back to the projects you're using, so I support that part. However, WordPress is not doing themselves any favors with the way they're handling the situation in this battle with WP Engine. For example, WP Engine alleges that Matt Mullenweg was attempting to use WordCamp 2024 as a way to extort WP Engine into revenue sharing with the Trademark. They showed text messages sent from Matt Mullenweg saying he would be pursuing a scorched earth nuclear approach to WP Engine. Then after WP Engine denied the revenue share, that is when he went up and did his now infamous talk. Then WP Engine got banned from WordPress.org, including banning of access for the users of the WP Engine service to install or update themes and plugins from WordPress.org. Then they decided to add a checkbox to the login and sign up page for WordPress.org for people to declare that they are, quote unquote, not affiliated with WP Engine in any way, financially or otherwise. In addition to the sketchiness of this checkbox, the language is also confusing because it's not clear if customers of WP Engine count as affiliated. Now, WP Engine themselves tweeted about this, saying that they're not affiliated, but they're not the ones who are interpreting whatever. But the ethics here are very questionable at best, and also the ethics of WordPress are now in more question by some people because WP Engine's Advanced Custom Fields plugin was forked by WordPress and is now replaced WP Engine's version on the WordPress.org plugin store. They claim that the reason for this is security, but it does beg the question, if security is the real reason, why wasn't this addressed before all of this happened? Well, the Advanced Custom Fields team responded on Twitter about this, describing this as a situation where a plugin under active development has been unilaterally and forcibly taken away from its creator without consent, which never happened before in the 21-year history of WordPress. Now, with all this happening, some of the employees of Automatic were not on board. Naturally, Automatic offered severance packages to anyone wanting to quit over the situation, and with this, more than 150 people have quit. According to 404 Media, Matt has also restricted people from using their work emails to sign up for the Blind app, which is a platform for safely talking about your workplace anonymously. Although you have to sign up for it with your work email, they don't have to, but they do suggest it for full access, whatever that means. It's just kind of odd that you have to use that in order to be anonymous, because now you need to ask Matt for the two-factor code when signing up or logging into it, and theoretically you could basically make that happen with any of these services. Like any company could do that in theory. Additionally, Matt has been arguing with people on Twitter about the situation and is going on podcasts and all sorts of stuff. And on one podcast, he went to talk about something that's interesting, the role of kindness in open source. And he did that on the Why Kindness podcast, which I agree, kindness is important and is definitely important in any kind of community-oriented type of thing. But it looks sort of weird when you're the main representative of one side in such a big controversy and also saying that something is a cancer to WordPress and all that. So, okay. Some people are worried about what is happening in the WordPress community over this because it does seem pretty odd, to say the least. The WordPress community and other projects feel this could also happen to them and want clarification from Automatic, which has an exclusive license to the WordPress trademark. The community is also asking about clear guidance around how they can and can't use the WordPress term. Additionally, the WordPress Foundation has also filed to trademark more stuff, such as quote-unquote managed WordPress and quote-unquote hosted WordPress. Developers and providers are worried that if these trademarks are granted, they could be used against them, which, understandably, that is a worry for why they're even trying to trademark it. And now managed WordPress and hosted WordPress have been around as terms for a very long time, and their purpose is to describe the service, not necessarily like a branding thing or a trademark thing. That's why so many services use it. It's kind of weird. Due to this situation, a lot of people are now learning that while WordPress.com, Automatic, and WordPress.org are all different entities that are all controlled by one person, Matt Mullenweg, which arguably eliminates the idea of separation. So the trademark is controlled by the WordPress Foundation, and the exclusive license for using the trademark is to Automatic, both owned by the same person. Well, it does seem to be not much of a separation there. Now, WP Engine has sued Automatic and Mullenweg over abuse of power in a court in California. WPE claims that Automatic and Mullenweg didn't keep their promises to run WordPress open source projects without any constraints. I'm not a lawyer by any stretch of the imagination, so I am just giving you my opinion based on the information I have. But the trademark policy on WordPressFoundation.org specifically states that the abbreviation WP is not covered by the WordPress trademarks. But it also says don't use it in a way, please don't use it in a way that confuses people. And that's a fair request. But the way this battle started really just looks bad for WordPress because they're talking about using WP in WP Engine as a problem and all of that when their own website says that's not covered. So, as a person who has used WordPress on many websites, countless sites over many years, and have been a fan of the platform for a while, this is just weird and disappointing. In my early days of web development, I actually didn't like WordPress for how it handled plugins, having them all running at the same time, regardless if you actually needed it on a page or not. But eventually, I was won over because of all the plugins. There are so many of them. I could create any kind of website I want thanks to these plugins. Though, in my opinion, WordPress is still kind of bad without plugins, but that's a different topic. But with so many plugins and services using the term WordPress, it makes me wonder how far this will go and how much backlash will WordPress get from all of this. So there are services and products and plugins that are using WordPress in their marketing. They're using WP in their name and all sorts of stuff. So it could be, it could get weird. It could get even more weird, I guess. The crazy part is that the basis for all of this kind of makes sense. As an advocate for open source and Libre software, I think anyone using an open source project to make a service, especially if they gain a lot of money from it, they owe it to the project they used in an ethical sense to give back. Automatic does about 100 times more development on WordPress than WP Engine per week, as they say, and reportedly, WP Engine hasn't contributed financially to the WordPress Foundation, so that's not great. But at the same time, WP Engine is powering more websites than Automatic Group, suggesting they are very likely making major bank on the back of WordPress. So if all those things are true, that would be not good on WP Engine's side. So if that's true, WP Engine is absolutely doing something very lame, taking advantage of the good nature of open source. All WP Engine needs to do, in my opinion anyway, is to donate a percentage of their profits. Even if it's 1%, that's better than nothing. And for me, it'd be like, okay, good to go. Of course, they also need to make sure it doesn't seem like they're pretending to be part of WordPress. But since this all started, it looks like they are taking actions to address that, because if you look at the website now, they have it in the footer, a very clear association or disassociation statement. And when in the header, there's like little small clicks, like the number 1 you can click when you see the WordPress for the first time, and then you can get the information quickly. But WP Engine isn't doing anything technically wrong when it comes to the open source licensing, because whether we like it or not, freeloading on the back of an open source project is fine. I mean, for me, it's ethically wrong to do that, but based on the legalese of the GPL license, or at least my understanding of the GPL license, it's fine. And the GPL is what WordPress uses. Personally, I think the reason all this happened is because the Automatic side is angry that WP Engine is more successful selling WordPress than they are. Now, that's just my snarky perspective, but why is WP Engine the target of all this instead of the other companies that offer similar services? Is it because they use the WordPress trademark improperly? Well, Automatic thinks so, but what about all the other companies that, like Hostinger, that are using the term managed WordPress or hosted WordPress in their services? Sure, Hostinger's name doesn't include WP like WP Engine does, but we already established that WP is not covered by the trademark, and that could create some market confusion for people thinking WP Engine is connected to WordPress, but I can see why some people can be confused by that. But on WordPress.org, there's also a part where it says there is a statement on the domain page. When you go to the About section, it says, for various reasons related to our WordPress trademark, we ask if you're going to start a site about WordPress or related to it that you not use WordPress in the domain name. Try using WP instead or another variation. So the name WP Engine should be fine based on that. They're even specifically saying to use WP. Matt Mullenweg and Automatic and whatever always seem to be on the right side of history with the openness and adopting open source mindset so early on, because WordPress was started in 2003. But during that time, open source was not a dominant force, nowhere near a dominant force, and it kind of is now. Now, fast forward to present. While all this stuff is happening, at the same time, they are still saying things that represent that they are still open source oriented, such as making a blog post dedicated to promoting forks of WordPress. For example, they talk about how forks are good and mention Classic Press, which is a fork that started in 2018, to keep the Classic editor around after the controversial update, replacing it with the block editor. Now, by the way, I hated the block editor originally when it first came out because it was just clunky and annoying and often broken. But now it works pretty good. So I like it. This blog post is also promoting new forks that were made as a result of this drama with FreeWP and Aspire Press. I think it's fascinating that on one end, WordPress seems to get it, and on the other end, they seem to don't. I don't think these forks will take much market share away from WordPress because the brand is so powerful at this point. It's likely not even they're not going to feel it at all. But it is interesting that these forks are happening and WordPress is promoting them. Something else I find fascinating is why has WP Engine been successful in gaining market share where WordPress.com seems to struggle in comparison? As a professional marketer and product manager, I think this really is on Automatic and their branding and their marketing. Because at best, you can describe their setup for all their brands and services as disjointed. Take, for example, WordPress.org. This is the website where you download the software. But where on that site do you find the service of WordPress.com? Where do you even see it mentioning WordPress.com? Almost nowhere. You will technically find it on every page, but it's at the very bottom of the page in the footer with a basic link not explaining what it is at all. Also, the hosting page itself is interesting too because WordPress.com is barely mentioned in a way that doesn't explain its fully managed service option, while at the same time it promotes competitors like Hostinger, Bluehost, and DreamHost, with Hostinger having more market share than both Automatic Group and WP Engine. Though Hostinger is not exclusively a WordPress host, but still it's interesting that they're promoting it. But yeah, it's not the same kind of thing that WP Engine is. Also on the same page is a service called Pressable. And then I thought, hey, cool, you have something that is a kind of like WP Engine that is on there and you're promoting it. So maybe you're doing like a balance thing. So that's why you're not talking about WordPress.com. It turns out that's not it, because you can add this to the laundry list of disjointedness because Pressable is a managed WordPress host similar to WP Engine that is owned by Automatic. So for some reason, you can buy managed WordPress hosting from Automatic on WordPress.com and on Pressable.com. Why? Why are there two? Who knows? Who knows? You know what? Let's go to WordPress.com and see if they're how they're promoting the service, shall we? Okay, so their homepage says WordPress without limits. Everything you need to build and grow any website all in one place. Where on this site do you ever say something like managed WordPress by the creators of WordPress? I'm not going to go looking through every page, but I did look through a lot of pages and I couldn't find anything like that. Even on the About page, doesn't say anything like that. At most, you see things like WordPress experts or other phrasing. And the thing is that all of these types of phrasing and these terms like WordPress experts, all of this can be said by any managed WordPress service. They can all use it because the term expert is subjective because it just means having comprehensive, authoritative knowledge of a particular area. This means that WP Engine, WordPress.com, and Pressable can all say, as well as any other service, that they are WordPress experts. In fact, I have decades of experience using and deploying WordPress, so I think it would be accurate to call myself a WordPress expert if I wanted to. Saying something like, from the creators of WordPress, this is something that only automatic brands like WordPress.com and Pressable can do, yet they don't do it. All right, so let's go to Pressable.com, which is confusingly a competitor to WordPress.com, operated by the same people for seemingly no reason. But does it say that it's from the creators of WordPress? Nope. Well, kind of, I guess, but also no. At the top, it says WordPress hosting that means business. This is somewhat clever, but doesn't really mean anything. But also, it doesn't use the most powerful selling point of being from the creators of WordPress. Unlike WordPress.com, though, they do eventually kind of explain it, sort of. So Pressable buried way down in the page, way down, like 75% down the page, there's a section called the You May Be Asking, where they answer the questions that you may be asking, such as, how is Pressable different from the competition? And their answer to this is, our data network was created and is maintained by the same minds behind WordPress.com, WooCommerce, and WordPress VIP. That means actual WordPress experts are keeping your website up, running, and secure. There's that WordPress experts thing again, because everybody can say all of those things except for the same minds part. The second sentence, all of the managed services can say that, Though the by the same minds thing says WordPress.com, not the creators of WordPress. So it really just says that you make both WordPress.com and Pressable.com, but not that you make WordPress itself. So even though you kind of say it here, you also don't. So maybe there's a different reason why people are confused about the association of WP Engine with WordPress. And it's because even Automatic's own services don't make it clear their association with WordPress. As a marketer myself and a product manager, I would like to give you some free advice. If you want people to know that WordPress.com is from the same people who make WordPress, tell them. Let me make sure that you heard it. If you want people to know WordPress.com is from the same people who make WordPress, tell them. For example, replace this WordPress without limits thing with something like, just off the top of my head, we host your WordPress so you don't have to. Affordable and reliable WordPress hosting provided and managed by the creators of WordPress. Done. Now people instantly find out which managed WordPress service is from the creators of WordPress. It's super easy. Also, by the way, the fact that you have your differentiator so far down Pressable is confusing because differentiators are like the main thing you want to clarify to people. Why should you pick them? That sort of thing. And you have it buried all the way down. It's even at the very bottom of that section. So also, why is there both WordPress.com and Pressable? That's another confusing situation. All right, I guess that's enough. So today we've learned that WP Engine is lame. If they're doing all the things that are being said about them and they're not contributing back, that's lame. Because if they're taking advantage of an open source project while not giving enough back to it, I would definitely call that lame. And also, Automatic is lame because you have the single most powerful marketing differentiator that you could possibly have in the WordPress ecosystem for why people should choose WordPress.com. But instead of using it, you have two competing services, and to go after your competition, you even say that you decided to go the scorched earth nuclear approach on your competition, making yourself look bad in the process. By the way, the term scorched earth is a tactic used by losing and retreating military in an effort to deprive the attacking forces from resources. Basically, it's to retreat and destroy your own stuff to leave nothing of value worth taking. It's hurting yourself in order to hurt the enemy. Not a great tactic for a business to do, but I guess in a way, it's kind of accurate for what you're doing because you're making yourself look bad. And I would say that, yeah, you're hurting yourself in the process. And I guess that is a scorched earth approach. Why would you want to do that? I don't know. Personally, I hope this all gets settled in a positive manner, that everybody comes out of this, better than they went in. WP Engine contributes more to the WordPress ecosystem, and WordPress comes out of it without too much damage from the scorched earth approach, which was not a great idea. But we'll have to wait and see what happens because there's lawsuits and all sorts of stuff happening. So I hope for the best. And by the way, I feel like there's a lot of potential for the amount of services that could happen, and there's plenty of room. But really, just to reiterate, don't have two of the same service. That's confusing. WordPress.com and Pressable. Pick one. More likely WordPress.com because it's the name of the thing. But also tell people what the reason they should choose it is. By the way, I forgot to mention when I showed it earlier, if you look at the mock-up I made, I just kind of made like a demo version of what it could look like with the text version I changed, where you say what you basically tell them that it's from the creators. There's also two buttons. I added an extra button. One of them talks about the free sign up and the other one talks about the premium. Right now, you just talk about the free sign up and not the premium stuff. And I feel like that's also missing a opportunity there. So, yeah, there's some free advice for you. Hopefully it helps. Now, normally I like to end my videos telling you about another cool video that I made so you can check out. But at this point, I'm just so tired that I'm just going to let YouTube pick it for me. So check out whatever this video is.